And it was never a Russian company. We happen to be born there, though we have different citizenships as well.
You was born in Russia, and you started work at what I would say ridiculously young age by UK standards.
It's still illegal to do like it is done in the UK or in some European countries, where you can just do a selfie with your phone and the bank would recognize it. I honestly believe every time somebody had chosen to contact us, we have failed.
The infrastructure connecting to the bank and the organisation that's holding ring-fenced your client's money just was shut down by the regulator. Expand on that for a moment, because I don't think anybody watching this will grasp what you mean by Meow, as in what happens. What is this? Hello, I'm Richard from UK Business Forums, and today I'm here with Boris Diakonov, co-founder of Anna Money. Hello, Boris.
Hi Richard.
Hi, great. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Please kick us off and tell us a bit about what is Anna Money.
Well, the full name is Absolutely No Nonsense Admin. That's Anna, in short. And it's both a banking application for small businesses, for sole traders, for entrepreneurs, for people that are actually constantly on the move and do stuff. But it also does your admin. It does taxes for you, invoices, invoice generating, invoice chase, and all of that stuff. So it pretty much frees up an entrepreneur to do business, to earn money, to serve clients without just being bored with the bank and the admin stuff.
I love that you say sort of bored with the bank aspect. It's something which you'd sit there and think, I just need an account, just need my money coming in. But you mention no nonsense admin and sort of freeing up the entrepreneur, the small business owner, to get on with running their business. So how comprehensive, how automated are the tools that Anna Money has for doing that?
Today it's more automated than it was yesterday. It's a very, very rapidly developing product, but it has pretty much all the basics covered already. When you buy a sandwich on a business trip, you take a picture of the receipt, we store the receipts, we marry the receipts with the transactions, we reconcile your balance, we integrate with different accountancy solutions if you use some, but if not, it's a pretty much straightforward way to just file in your taxes, and we do that as well.
And you mentioned chasing invoices as well.
Yeah. If as a business you're invoicing somebody, you generate, and it has a brilliant invoice generator, but then it also monitors that invoice is actually paid. And it's all included in the basic subscription.
And what I'd like to chat about today is Anna comes from what I would say is a good pedigree, if I sort of speak about yourself like that, in its development. So sort of going right back to your early years, you was born in Russia and you started work at what I would say ridiculously young age by UK standards. What was that?
I had a dream to become a doctor. I was quite a sickly child, taken off into the hospitals, and fell in love with this hospital atmosphere and stuff like that, which does sound weird, but I wanted to be somebody who is able to help people, and I read a bunch of books about all the brilliant doctors, inventors of the vaccines, stuff like that, great surgeons, and then my classmate's dad was a doctor. So I said whether I can come to the hospital and be of some help, and they said, well, sure. And they showed me around, and I loved it, and they liked me. So I stayed. I was 12 at the time. I was given all kinds of small hospital chores, from from washing and cleaning to actually like doing some injections and stuff like that, which is crazy. It shouldn't be done, but these were wild times then. So, and then there was a great shortage of staff. Hospitals were very underserved, and they were really happy with any helping hand out there.
And you did that for a number of years, about 4 years.
Yes, something around like that. And then my graduation time from school came, and and then I wanted to be a pastor after that. So I was still a teenager with moving goals and changing agendas.
See that when looking through your career history, it is so diverse because you originally studied philosophy.
Yes.
And then whilst studying philosophy, you got involved in sysadmin, so you sort of within the college. Is that right? And sort of looking after the sort of the network.
Yeah. Well, I started back in Russia studying philosophy, but then got accepted into the American college in Louisiana, as they say, and went there and studied religion and business and accounting, by the way, and it ended up with me getting a liberal arts diploma, which is a mix of everything. But in the midst of it, I discovered this love and passion for computers, and it was at the time when there were no courses, just few articles on the internet, very few books. And so I just pretty much became, on my second year in college, became a self-taught admin and website creator, and had several jobs, including one in the college, and ended up running the college's network.
So what year was this? Just to paint the picture.
97, 98.
So we're talking right at the very cusp of the internet. Yes. Where some of the newspapers were still saying the internet's a fad that would not catch on.
Yes. It was 96 when I started, and 97 I got pretty good at it. In 98 I graduated, and and it was funny because it was also small and wild. There was ISPs, how they call them then, and I was a sysadmin for one of them, and they pretended to be a large company, and it was just myself and a co-founder, and the whole thing was working from his home computer. So it was just incredibly wild.
So in the 90s, because I missed that part from you, was what I remember from, because that's when I started working in the internet, was literally in the late 90s. There was the term bedroom ISP.
Yes.
So yes. You was a bedroom ISP.
I actually ran one as a side job, yeah.
Yeah. And this was whilst you was at college?
Yes.
What happened after college then? So you got to the end, you got your diploma, and then what was your next steps after that?
I had an option of staying in the US, but and I actually wanted to go to seminary and to continue on the theological path. But then I was, rightfully told that I would totally lose touch with reality of my country. So I decided to go back. And I wanted to be of service in the ministry and the church. But I didn't want to live from the offerings at the time, and especially from the ones that are sent from abroad. I just felt it wouldn't go well, and so I went about looking for a job, and I would be happy pretty much with any job that would pay for my expenses, and that I would be just financially independent, and they ended up agreeing to do a website for this bank, and so they hired me as a part-time worker, and did a website for them, but got very bored, because who cares about a banking website, right? It just has some outdated news and currency exchange rates, nothing spectacular. So I came to my bosses there and said, well, why won't we do an internet banking? And they were afraid at first because, well, what if all of our money will get stolen through the internet? That was the level of perception back then. But then we somehow said, okay, we will limit the risk, we will do this and we will do that. It was one of Russia's first and actually world's first internet banking solutions, because we started to create our own in 98, 99. And the earliest one appeared in the America in a very limited functionality in 97, 98, I think. So it was all very, very early stages, actually pioneering the field.
Okay. And that led to you co-founding what became, am I right here, the world's largest 24/7 365 days a year bank.
Yeah, well, there was one step before that. My boss at that bank decided to buy his own and called me to join the team. And that's how Bank24 appeared. But it wasn't yet a totally digital era. It was 2002 or something like that. And it was about, it was a strong internet presence. But we could not envision then that a bank could function without a branch. And it wasn't legally possible either at the time. So we had 24-hour offices and branches with live people sitting there, with cashiers, clerks, doing basic operations 24/7 on Christmas, New Year's, all the holidays, just straight through and it was a great technical challenge. Nobody have done it before that, because banks always had this banking holidays, days when they reconcile their balances and whatever. And we had this challenge of actually making sure that we can run 24/7. And it was a great technical foundation to build on. And that's where we met with Edward Pantilev, with whom we've been doing business ever since 2008. And then, later we co-founded Tochka, and pretty much most of the team from Bank24 joined it as well. And Tochka with years became the world's largest digital SME banking solution, serving around 500,000 business clients.
So if we roll back to Bank24 for a moment, just so I understand that correctly then, so it wasn't legally possible to operate as a bank entirely online. You had to have a physical branch presence.
Yeah.
And you wanted to offer a 24-hour service through digital banking. Is that the reason why you had to have the 24-hour open branches?
Partially, yes, and partially some people still wanted to have a branch. That was the feeling then, and especially for currency exchange, for deposits, things like that. People wanted to come to the branch. So we, with time, we limited the services to things that could only be done offline, but and the account management was done online. But it was the bank for both for businesses, but it was just your regular B2C bank at the time.
And you just mentioned there you met Edward, who's your current business partner.
Yes.
At Bank24.
Yes. He actually bought it out in 2008, and that's how we met, and that's how our business relationship and personal relationship grew as well.
So he purchased Bank24.
Yes.
And then you both co-founded Tochka, which is, you just mentioned, is a SME, so small business only bank.
Yes. That's when we decided to focus. We realized that we can do a really brilliant product if you do it just for everybody. We need to focus on somebody, and we decided to focus on businesses and entrepreneurs because they're just great people.
Yeah, no, I'll vouch for that. And did you need to have by this time then? So this was about 2008, was this, or around about that time, or about 2008?
Yeah. No, Bank 24. It was till 2014, I think, and that's and that's when Tochka started.
Okay, and did you need to have the physical bank presence at that point, or are we talking literally purely digital?
Yeah, it became purely digital.
Okay, so there'd been a change in the laws at that time, so you could do it.
Yes, and the situation changed, and we were able to restart the whole operational model without branches. We were the first ones at the time at the market to actually offer business banking without a branch.
Focusing just on Tochka, so what was that journey like? What being the first to market to be solely digital? It obviously grew to be massive. Was it just an easy ride? Did it just like everybody just took straight to it, or what was there sort of bumps in the road?
Oh, there were usually a bunch of bumps on the road. Firstly, we had like some technological difficulties on how to manage the whole thing. Then our account opening process was incredibly ugly in the beginning. We couldn't figure it out. We still under the laws then. We needed a physical meeting. We had then 50, then 100, then literally 1,000 people all across a huge country that would go meet clients, take pictures. It's still illegal to do like it is done in the UK or in some European countries, where you can just do a selfie with your phone and the bank would recognize it. A physical meeting is still needed, and so it was not only a digital exercise. It became a brand building exercise, because the people that actually come and take a picture, they can be busy, they can be rude, or they can be true brand ambassadors. Initially they were all in bow ties. They would all come to meetings at bow ties, and all the clients would be gifted with a small bottle of wine in a special like container, and funny instructions how to use it. So we redesigned. We not even redesigned. We pretty much designed the process from scratch to be both effective and impactful. And in all honesty, it took a couple of years to get it right and to scale and to get to the numbers.
I would liken that to you create, putting words in your mouth here, but it sounds like you created an experience of being boarded to Tochka. Legislation meant you had to, it sounds crazy, I'm literally still coming to terms with that you needed 1,000 people across all of Russia to go and physically meet people, and we're in 2022 now, and that's still the requirement there.
Yes.
To physically go and meet people when you're a digital bank to get the ID set up and get people to get the account opening. But you made it different. You turned it from being a photograph, here's a form, sign this process, into an experience.
Yes, and the selection process of these people who actually go and meet, because their primary goal was not to identify and not to cut down on fraud, but to impress, to create an experience, to be memorable, and to show people their way around in the app if they need it.
Was that, because it also sounds like a hugely expensive process. Was it expensive? Did it create financial challenges for the bank, especially in the early days?
In the early days, we needed to be very careful to balance it, but that's an important bit. Unlike lots of startuppers and fintech startuppers, Edward and myself and then the team, we were never startuppers in a traditional sense of the word. We were never about doing a great pitch, raising money, and never actually building a business, just hopping from one conference to another. We are not conference hoppers. We're craftsmen. We enjoy creating a brilliant product, building a profitable operation, and that's what we did with our previous businesses before they were, and still are, as far as I'm aware, they're all still profitable. And that's what we want Anna to be. It's not a sort of typical fintech shiny thing for a conference or just for investors. It's something that we are ready to stick with and to grow.
How did Tochka? I mean, is Tochka still going today?
Yes, it is.
And is it? Are you still involved, or did you sell, exit the business?
Well, when we started developing Anna, our involvement naturally shrunk to just giving some advice periodically, and with the recent developments, that is over with now as well.
Okay, so jumping forward to Anna, then in 2018 you moved to the UK under a global talent visa.
Yes, and I was actually the last one to move from the team. Other co-founders and Edward moved 1 year earlier. Yes, and I came in 2018, right around this time actually.
Yeah. So it's around about the sort of, would that be 4th anniversary if you move into the UK?
Yeah.
So you came over in 2018. When did developing Anna start then? It was a bit before then.
Yes. We started exploring actually much earlier, I think in 2016. In 2017 we were already building. And but at the time it was pretty hard to find a reliable partner who could provide the underlying banking solution. We haven't had this comprehensive understanding of the market, so we were flying over, exploring, talking to clients, potential partners. At the time we were so wild, we actually thought that we would need to apply for a full banking license. It was before we learned of this brilliant EMI, electronic money issuer scheme, and payment service providers, and all the brilliant infrastructure that was created and is being created in the UK.
Because when building the banks in Russia, you had to build them entirely.
Yes. With so as a team, we have experience running our own processor, just the bank, the treasury, everything, and it's such a relief just not to have to do it here.
So what attracted you to the UK? What was you looking to, sort of moving into the sort of current accounts or banking sector within the UK, and launching it? You started building Anna around the time that you were still involved in Tochka, and that was so you was already running a hugely successful bank. What lessons and sort of challenges had you overcome with Tochka that you wanted to bring to the UK?
Well, several things, I guess. Well, first the motive, then the challenges, right? The motive, when we were looking at the market, and the motives are always complex things and of complex nature, and they were personal motives, and they were business motives, and they were emotional motives. And so they all joined, and that's how Anna came to be. Well, we pretty much, as a founding team, we pretty much had a sense where Russia is heading, and we didn't like it. And as business people, we saw that there is no future with the political regime, and unfortunately, we're witnessing these grim predictions coming to life. So that was kind of part of the motivation, that we were looking to cut ties. So when we moved 4 or 5 years ago, that wasn't an accident. That was sort of a choice and a decision. And but then when we looked at the market, we looked at the market, we looked at the figures, but most of all, we spoke to real people, and we looked at the banking apps, and we were just amazed at the poor experience entrepreneurs were getting, and it's not only at the time having your balance showing up on the next day, not seeing your card transactions right away, all the basic things that they just need to be in the app, and we're incredibly passionate about making sure that our clients don't even feel that there is a bank somewhere. It's their money, it's their funds, and they need to be able to operate them. As simple as you send a picture in a WhatsApp, right? It just doesn't need to be more complicated than that. Obviously, there are regulations and money laundering rules and the legislation all financial institutions have to go through, but it needs to be simple. And the second thing we discovered is that banks would have personal managers or relationship managers, and not a single person we spoke to actually enjoyed the relationship. They just knew that this is a person that would call once a month or once a quarter and try to sell stuff.
That's pretty much my personal experience.
Yeah, and that's never a relationship. But then when you actually have an issue with a bank, we would say, well, how fast is it normally solved? And people would say, well, they normally respond on a next business day or in a business day, and then they ask you clarifying questions, and it just keeps going and going. And in my view, the standard needs to be, for most cases, to be resolved right on the spot. And that's the thing that we heavily invested back in Tochka and learned, and it was painful learning experience. But we created a world's leading client and customer support there. Edward took the team to Zapas. They're famous for their customer approach, for how they run their call center, how they manage their company as a whole, and we learned a lot on how to build this type of operation. So we never even considered outsourcing our contact center or call center, or we call it a client experience circle.
That's quite impressive that as a company you literally just looked at who you admired in that area and just took your staff there and just said, this is how this is how this company are doing it amazingly well, we want to replicate that.
Yes, and and that's also one of the things I forgot to mention. Our previous business and then our never linked operationally. We never took any of the staff from one place to another. It's just me and Edward who were the link between the two, but just mainly sharing the experience. And so we had to build it from scratch here, very different, bit different mentality. But I think we're doing really great because Tochka's support was boasting NPS, Net Promoter Score, like 75, 77%, which is insane for this industry. Banks normally have a negative NPS. And Anna's in NPS has grown in general as a company since we launched. We started at around 35%, and it's 75% right now, which is top of the class.
Yeah. And how do you get that within the organisation? So Net Promoter Score, for people who aren't familiar with that, is literally, in simplistic terms, somebody's willingness to recommend or promote your organisation, and that's like internally, externally. So you have a vision and a desire and an aspiration to provide a level of service and have a passion, and you're the founder, so you will naturally have that, or co-founder. So how do you get that down throughout an organization, particularly you're coming into a new country as well with a different way of just different behavior, different mentality, that you want your team to buy into that within a bank?
Oh, we've had our mistakes, and we've made our mistakes, but what we found is that people deep down inside genuinely want to do something good for other people, and nobody enjoys being by a robot, just picking the phone or answering in chat and doing monotonous things. And we're still not finished. There are a bunch of things to improve. There is always a place and the room for improvement. But what we're seeing is that hiring right type of people who are motivated by actually solving other people's problems, and that they don't look at the chats as just another chat. They imagine and seeing a real person on the side of the screen. We have this little introductory speech with all the new employees, and we say, hey, it's entrepreneurs on the other end of the screen. And then I always ask a simple question: have you had breakfast today? Well, maybe lunch. Have you eaten today? Have you drinking today? And most people obviously say, yeah, we had something. And then it's over a video, but I would always ask, well, are you clothed today? And they say, yeah, we have something. And you're sitting in a chair. Yeah, we're sitting in a chair. You're using a computer. Yeah, we're using a computer. Well, all this was produced and created and delivered and sold, and all the logistics, it's all entrepreneurs behind it. Large and small, everything we consume, everything we eat, we drink, we buy, it's all entrepreneurs behind it. It's people who took the risk. And it's people who try to provide for themselves, for their families, who have responsibility for their employees. And they have better things to do than to be bored with banking and with admin. And we're here to make sure it goes smoothly with them. And normally if they contact us, it's our problem. It means we something we haven't done right. And we're here to correct it. We're here to make things right. A lot of people in our team enjoy giving out, we call it jabs of joy. It was during this whole COVID experience when the whole word jabs was incredibly popular, and the idea is that when our support agents, our bankers, when they talk to the client, they have an option of just doing something nice for them, sending flowers, or an easier way is just to give an instant gift certificate with Uber Eats, for example. And for example, the client is sad, and it doesn't have to be Anna related. Obviously, if we were wrong in any way, we'll try to correct it. But if client has some celebratory occasion or whatever, give out joy. If something's not right, well, give out joy. If something goes as it should be, but the person is nice and you had this human connection during the chat, give out a jab of joy. And a lot of support centers and call centers, they have KPIs on this and that. One of the key KPIs I'm following is how many jabs of joy were given out.
I love that. I really love that. And what I picking up from it is you're humanizing the person behind the other end of the screen as well, from both sides.
Exactly.
The what you've just said about entrepreneurs, the people, the business founders, from everything of what's created, and all too often a call center, you mentioned KPIs there, is to churn through, get the next call out, get the next call out, and it's like, and it becomes a rush to try and get that person off that call, as opposed to actually humanizing it. Is no, I like the message there. It's and interesting how you have the jabs of joy as a KPI.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a company's schizophrenia, or with an airplane with two wings. With one wing, we're trying to be as automated as possible, because a great experience where you do not have to contact support. I honestly believe every time somebody has chosen to contact us, we have failed, because it just should work. But life is life. We're not perfect. We're just getting there. We'll be there tomorrow. But at the meantime, when this does happen, we want to be as human as we possibly can. We want to see human on the other side of the screen, but we want Anna's employees also to be human, to actually enjoy what they're doing, because, well, why else would you want to work anyway?
Now, Anna has had some challenges, and one of the big challenges that you mentioned earlier, that what you found when you came over to the UK was the infrastructure you didn't have to create from scratch in some aspects. And one of the big challenges I'm aware of is related to WireCard, and sort of one of the, just some. Can you sort of talk us through what that actually means? So anybody sort of watching this, what is WireCard to Anna, and then why it created such a challenge for you, and how you handled it and sort of communicated with your customers?
Yeah, well, when we first started on the market, there were several providers with their pros and cons each. And WireCard, they were really good with selling their proposition. They said, okay, we will hook you up quickly. It will all work seamlessly. And and so we signed up. Well, later down the road, we have learned that...
Sorry, when you say signed up,
yeah,
this is the technology that plugs your banking solution into the banking world for other banks.
Yes. So it's pretty much, at the time, it provided a license, an EMI license, electronic money issuing license, which is not a banking license. It's different regulatory regime where bank takes clients' money and gives them out as loans. And then there is risk management and this and that and capital requirements. With electronic money institutions, it's simpler. The regime is different. Instead of the regulator observing how the money is invested, with electronic money institutions, the regulator just makes sure that the money is not spent in other places. It pretty much, the client's money always stays client's money.
I'd love to come back on that in a bit to talk through the differences between digital banks and incumbent or licensed banks, because I think that'd be a really interesting subject for people to understand.
Well, we can stop on that here, because it's a whole... you can be digital and a bank, and you can be digital and electronic money institution. And then you can be again a bank, a fully licensed bank that is digital, and you can be a fully licensed bank that has your regular branches and offices and processes and stuff like that. So how digital an institution is just one thing, and then the whole other thing is how they fundamentally manage clients' money. The bank gives out loans, and therefore they can pay interest. electronic money institution cannot give out loans, therefore they cannot pay interest on their accounts, but they are under the obligation to safeguard.
Effectively, all your clients' money is ring fenced.
Yes. That's the term that they use, ring fenced, and that money sits in a regulated bank. So electronic money institutions have their own bank safeguarding, they call them safeguarding accounts that sit with a regulated bank. It gets a bit more complicated than that on a practical level, but for most people...
For anybody who's curious, what's the difference between a high street bank and a digital current account provider? Because I see marketing out there, we're a bank, we're not a bank kind of scenario. The simplistic terms, if I repeat it back, is that with a bank, I can go and put my money into the bank I've got. That bank can then take that money, subject to various quotas and things like that, can then lend my money to somebody else as if it was their own.
Yeah.
Charge interest to that person, and then give me a little cut of that interest back.
Yeah, and most of the interest goes to cover the risk, and then obviously some loans are not incredibly successful, some are, and then that also means that banks, their money is always in loans. They sort of balance it. Whether with electronic money institution, the money is always available. Yeah, it's not invested. It just sits in cash.
So some would argue then that the digital current account providers, and there's a few of them, Anna is one of them, and there's others, that your money's safer there.
Well, it's different, but fundamentally it is, because it's not out there in the economy. It just sits there being ring fenced. But then again, it sits with a bank, so it's all very related.
I think that's a really interesting topic for people to understand when they're choosing and wanting, who am I going to do my banking with, whether it's personal or business. So going back to WireCard then. So WireCard were the provider for that infrastructure,
the technical provider, and the license, and the license provider for us, and at the time we were incredibly excited about how our relationship went, but then we learned several hard lessons. One is the way that came as a surprise to me, as a personal surprise, the way contracts done in the UK. You sign up for several years with retainers without the capacity to break out of the contract, even when you realize that the other party is not living up to the contract standards. For example, we were told that there would be faster payments, and we read the white paper, and the white paper said that faster payments are actually fast payments. They go within seconds. Well, with WireCard, it took 4 hours for a faster payment to go through, and up to a day or two sometimes, and it's just one of the example of the surprises that we discovered after we signed up, and so we worked with WireCard, but then rumors started coming around that they're in their sort of mother company, in German company, that there might be some difficulties with finances, because there they were regulated as a bank, and I think as a bank and sort of an EMI, but then they had operations all over the place, and and especially Edward was insistent that we start looking for alternative providers. So we started looking for alternative providers and taking our time with that, because there were
other priorities.
Other priorities, but also it didn't seem that urgent. But at the same time, we were told, and that was partially true, that WireCard UK is very different from WireCard Germany. It was a separate company, owned but not operated by the German headquarters. And we've started. We discovered Railsbank, who is Anna's provider right now, and we've started the tests. And they've sort of, this preliminary work, getting to know each other, and we were incredibly afraid after our first experience with signing up a contract and then not getting what we promised. So we pretty much checked all the promises. Faster payments, how many seconds does it take for them to go? Oh, actually 2 seconds. Good. And then there was this week when the amount of news about WireCard headquarters in Germany, there were some leaks, I think, in Financial Times or somewhere, and our understanding was that the regulator would somehow take care of the problem, and we had this all company meeting on Friday morning. I think it was Friday morning, the demo where everybody shared the news, and while Edward was speaking about our goals for the next quarter, a message came that the regulator just shut down WireCard.
That's a bit of a hit.
Yes, that's a bit of a hit, and
so this is the infrastructure connecting to the bank and the organisation that's holding ring-fenced your client's money was shut down by the regulator.
Yes, and that effectively meant that within minutes or an hour, all the cards stopped working and the payments wouldn't go in and out, and that lasted. It was obviously Friday, and then WireCard had a lot of clients like us that were all hit, and the public outcry was great. And all these payment associations were outraged because how unexpectedly all of that happened, and we were speaking with WireCard a day before, and they were saying yes, regulators do have their questions, we're trying to answer them, but we don't expect anything bad to happen, it's gonna be all right. And so it was a shock. But as much as it was a shock for us, it was a shock for the clients. And and we were watching other players, and they were not communicating well. They were just referring to the regulator, to the FCA, and then we spoke to our shareholders at the time, and we said, well, let's consider the worst case scenario, because the good case scenario, it will all start working again tomorrow, right? But the worst case scenario, WireCard had broken the ring fencing laws somehow, and it will take time to recover funds. We were pretty sure that the funds are there, but we haven't seen the books. We have seen our account opened in our name, and we were sure that the funds were there. But then we pretty much had a online broadcast with our clients where we just opened, answered all the questions, told everything we know, told what we are going to do, and what we are going to do was that we were willing to provide liquidity from Anna's own funds time to just to cover the payments, to make sure businesses wouldn't suffer. And we spent the whole weekend working with solicitors and the legal team on how to actually manage that. And for several clients in dire circumstance, we were able to pretty much give our own funds to them from another account, so they could. Some people will like
Pay themselves.
pay themselves in a really distressed situation. But luckily, when the week started, the regulator had resumed the operations, and so we resumed. Obviously, we moved to Railsbank as fast as we could, and then later we learned that Railsbank had actually bought WireCard's business and did the transfer. But we were the first ones to jump ship. And so it's much more stable now, and everything works as expected. But it was quite a hit, though we tried our best to make sure that clients would not get a heavy hit, though they obviously some did. Some were upset and left, but then there were many clients that said, actually, guys, we know we were really upset. The language they used were pissed off at the time, but then we saw how you behaved as a company. You were there to support. You communicated openly and honestly, and you did everything to move us over to a safe haven. And lots of these clients are with Anna to this day. Because I guess you can't make true friends just in a nice shiny days.
It's often referred to the issue people have with suppliers or businesses isn't really the problems that go wrong. It's how you face and handle them and make things right in that situation is where you sort of demonstrate what kind of company you are. So did any of your competitors do something similar? Like, you mentioned you literally did a video call. People could put their questions to you live on the call and you answered them. That's very much putting yourself out there. And I can only imagine you just said pissed off. I imagine people pissed off that they've lost their earnings, any money they've got in their business bank account. All the people,
and they haven't had the certainty of the future.
No. So facing that head on must have been a very difficult thing to do, but emotionally and just trying to maintain composure.
Yes, but we believe it was the right thing to do.
No, I'd agree with that. So I mean that's I would say that must be a difficult one to top as a challenge to face. You mentioned earlier about the reasons why sort of things going on within Russia and why you come to the UK and sort of way things are happening. You've distanced yourself as an organisation. You distanced yourself from ties from Russia, but as sanctions came in, you hit another challenge there with one of the sort of companies that invested into Anna. Like many companies, you have investors coming in, particularly in the digital or fintech sector. Mm-hmm. What happened there, and how did you overcome that?
And it was never a Russian company. We happened to be born there, though we have different citizenships as well. And then lots of employees are from Russia. Some are from Ukraine. So it was an international company from the start. A lot from the UK. And they're based here, and we were moving people over, but yes, we had investors that got into sanctions, and it was another hit for us, because some of the people that got on the sanction list, they were born in Ukraine. They had parents living there, so it was it was just I guess just a total mess. We had some suspicions that it might happen, but it came quite unexpected and quite rough, and but we did several things also to secure and save the company. We made sure that all affiliated directors are not on Anna's board. We also, another time this word, we ring-fenced ourselves from any influence. We changed the articles of the company. And since the war started, the company is only founders run. Investors never had operational influence, but they haven't had a vote either. And then we had these quite complex negotiations, and then also it took some time for reality to sink in, because I think some people expected that this whole conflict would be over in a couple of days and life will get back to normal. I think it now makes more sense to believe that it would not. And so we managed to buy out the company, and Anna is again, as it was back in 2018 or 17, is again 100% owned by the founders, by the founding team, and obviously our employees now who have shares through the option program. And yeah, that's where we are. So it turned out to be a challenging time, but again a positive time in the end. And then I just spoke to one of our Ukrainian colleagues that we didn't know it was when exactly something like that would come, but we managed to relocate him to UK. He's quite settled in Cardiff now, and and it's a joy. Yeah, it's a joy to be seeing that, and then obviously as directors and co-founders, we took a very strong stand in supporting Ukraine. And doing all we can to support the cause. And it's funny that you asked, because just today there came a review on Trustpilot, where a client said, well, they do their job brilliantly. There are still some improvements, and he had written, I have learned about the founders that they are of Russian origin, and I thought about leaving the company because of that. But then I read what they're saying, I saw what they're doing, and I decided to stay. And it was great to read it, that there are intelligent people out there who do their research and are not afraid of all these things.
I can imagine some people can judge very quickly without understanding a situation, and in so many different ways, but particularly this is happening now. So I can only imagine experiencing this now, but it over years and things, it's impacting so many different people from so many different backgrounds over the years. You can't tar everybody with the same brush, to use an analogy. So it's fantastic to hear what you're doing. We've got somebody who's over as a refugee from Ukraine at the moment, is working for us, who just by pure chance, we were advertising a post, applied, and was the best person for the job. Works fantastically. I'd like sort of moving forward from there, pick your brains about the banking industry. For example, there's a lot of conversation, and people always bound around this term open banking. Now, this is something that I find exciting, the opportunity with open banking. But what does it mean? What is open banking to you, and where do you see that, what it enables going forward for the future?
Banking is a very weird industry in the sense that it is a market, it is an open market, but it is a regulated market. And things normally don't happen unless regulators are comfortable with that. And in most cases, it's just for the good of the public, because some things in financial technology can be just plain devastating, and we've seen it in history how people can lose all of their money because some businesses are not being watched over, and then with banking, there were several great developments, but with unexpected outcome. Well, first the account switching scheme. People were so excited about that. It would be so easy to switch an account. Well, in the end of the day, almost nobody did.
I've seen that with some of our other clients who work within the banking sector. It's always, particularly the incumbent banks, have lots of KPIs of how many people they can get to switch accounts. We've seen saying, why bother? Why would you swap bank accounts if the bank is just, I put my money there, I take my money out, and that's it.
Yeah. And that's another important thing. Banking is a commodity, and an example that we kind of discovered several years ago. It's like how many people enjoy going to the hospital? Nobody. How many people enjoy calling to NHS? Nobody. Why do people still do it? Well, they need health. They have a problem. They need to get better, and it's not a function that's it's not an institution that people are looking for. It's a function that they want, and it's the same with the bank. It's sort of sad to be. I spent almost quarter of a century in the banking industry, and it's a sobering realization to know that actually nobody cares. You're just a commodity. People care about their money. They do. They're very passionate about it, but they don't care about the institution. They just want the thing to be there. They want it to move. They want it to be transparent. All of these very functional desires, but they normally don't care about you as an institution. That's why Anna does banking, but we understand that business banking is not something to die for. It's actually making life better and easier for entrepreneurs and saving their day and saving their time. Now that's important, and making sure they have clarity and focus. That's value. Moving money is not, and that's where open banking technology comes into play. What ended up happening though is people, instead of switching banks, they just have a bunch of different banks.
They just all log in through one app.
Yes, and then it is convenient. Instead of, oh, how much money have I got in here and there, it is very convenient to log in through one app, to see all my accounts in one place. We use open banking, for example, in our admin tools, because some people, we have lots of clients with admin who don't have a banking account with Anna, a business banking account with Anna. They just use admin separately, but the information still sits with their bank. So they link Anna with an open banking solution, or they link this account with another account. And I don't think the API is still where it needs to be. Yeah. It might be much better. It might be much more transparent. But we've done some really beautiful things with it already, and have really enriched the client's experience. But what it does to the industry, it pretty much brings forward the value-added services. And the banking kind of goes under the hood.
That's where I see it myself is exactly the same view. Nobody really cares about or are vested into whoever they use for their banking. It's you don't have the same emotion attached to a bank generally than what you would
Except Anna.
except Anna, of course. But if you compare it to the emotion people feel towards a car, for example, it's very different. But open banking, where you literally you're opening up the doors to all these other opportunities. I'm seeing opportunities for systems to keep on top of your borrowing, your credit cards, your finances, and intelligently calculating whether you can pay off a credit card, transfer a card, settle a loan early, your mortgage, things using AI tools effectively, or intelligent automation to preempt and or make financial decisions for you or recommendations for you, because it understands your entire financial situation. So can you afford to put a little bit extra off your mortgage one month, because it knows and able to calculate when all your bills are coming in. So can you afford a bit extra? Do you want to cut back on your takeaways this month and put an extra £100 off your mortgage? It will save you this much in your interest payments over the next 20 years. This sort of
Insightful things, yes.
that's the sort of thing where I see somebody wanting to grab hold of. I'll paint in this idea very quickly. That sort of intelligence into that kind of platform. It excites me to see that happening. You touched on it earlier, the difference between the different types of licensing for banking. If you was to summarize a pro and a con for each, for somebody trying to work out how they would, where you're going to put your banking, what would they be? I know you're very biased. We'll read that.
Yes. A simple answer would be go for Anna, but a more complicated one would be that with the banking there is a protection scheme, but it has a cap on it. But then with an AMI institution, well, just one step backwards. Normally, what people don't realize that if they're a sole trader and they have an account, the same bank, all of the amount would be summed up
between their personal and their sole trader account, because they are the same entity.
Yes, and so it might end up that the protection scheme is not enough. With an AMI institution, it's a different nature of business, because the money is ring fenced. It cannot be given out to loans. I'm personally very conservative. I don't invest much. I just prefer my money just to sit somewhere. So for me, an AMI model is clearer.
And where do you? Anna's still on a journey, an exciting journey. So it's entirely under yourself, your colleagues as the founders now, and obviously you got your share options with your staff. It's perhaps like a big family. Where do you see the next few years going?
Anna has several very exciting developments underway. We hope to have some brilliant releases in Q4 and Q1 of the next year. That would really streamline the admin experience, and we're enjoying a steady growth. We've grown. We're growing around 3 to 4 times every year, and but I believe we're just picking up speed right now, and we expect to within around 2 years we expect to have several things. Well, first of all, we would be a self-sustained business with no further needs for investments. Secondly, and most importantly for our clients, we would be the most loved banking and admin service out there. I'm not saying the cheapest one, I'm not saying the one that has the most functions, I'm saying the most loved and the most used and the most useful. One of Anna's values is to be useful. And that's what we want Anna to be, just useful. And and we expect to be one of the leaders in the SME field in serving businesses. And but in the end of the day, the great joy for me personally would be meeting more and more people out there in the vans, doing something that, you know, have they pay for something at the cafe, and you hear Meow, and you know they're using Enna card.
Expand on that for a moment, because I don't think anybody watching this will grasp what you mean by Meow. As in, what happens? What is this?
Well, every time you tap an Enna card, it meows.
Yeah, the actual cat, because that's your branding, is the cat. Yeah. So when you use an Anna Money payment card, it makes a meow noise.
It sure does.
That's because your branding is very out there, very different from any other like bank organization we've seen. But yeah, so your what motivates you, is to be out there doing your normal shop, and you just hear a meow in the background.
Yes, and they know, and at the time I know somebody's with us, somebody's using us. We as Anna is useful to this particular person behind this particular business, and we're making their lives better, and they can spend more time with their family or just doing sports or whatever, instead of reconciling the invoices and waiting a response from their bank.
You mentioned, I'd like to follow up on that a bit. So that's your joy that you within Anna, that with what you're doing within your job effectively. Mm-hmm. What's your personal ambition for you? So for you personally, Boris, what's the what drives you?
I don't think I have. It's a weird thing to say, but I don't think I have professional ambitions anymore. I used to have a lot of them, you know, to be the best here, the best there. I just want to be useful. I want this business to grow, and when the timing is right, I want to go sailing and circumnavigating this wonderful earth. And I hope people will not blow it up before that.
Yeah, we do. We all do. So when your time comes, so when we age and the world hasn't blown up, what would you want to be remembered for?
My funny jokes.
Go on, tell us one.
Well, that's the thing about funny jokes; they never come on the spot. That's
for your humour. Shall I help you out there? The humour.
All right. Yeah.
No, we'll go for humour. It's interesting. I've seen Anna over the years. I've seen Anna develop. I remember some of the events over recent years that you've just talked about where things have happened. Anna's an interesting company to observe, and it's great to be chatting to yourself as one of the co-founders today. Interesting, very diverse story. If anybody was to pick a point in your early career and just say, this guy's going to be running a bank, I don't think many people would draw the line there, and it just shows how interesting people's career developments and lives can be. I'd love to thank you very much for chatting today. Really fascinating story. Thank you.
Thank you.